What happens when you bring artists and developers under the same roof? What can we expect from a growing arts tech field? Today we have the pleasure to welcome Martin Eyerer, Chief Innovation Officer at Factory Berlin, founder of Riverside Studios, and a global DJ. So, welcome, Martin.
Hello, thanks to have me here. I'm really excited to do something with you guys.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much. So, straight to the first question. How did this partnership between Riverside Studio and Factory Berlin start, and what's the vision behind it?
My partners and me, we founded Riverside Studios 8 years ago, and in the beginning we were just looking for studio space, the three of us, and pretty soon we extended, and suddenly we became a network, a community. In the first moment we curated just by a gut feeling. We wanted to have people around us and not just react on demand for space, because there was a lot of people asking us. In Berlin, it's a city where everyone looks for studio space. So we choose people we felt they fit somehow, and we even called actively some people. They even didn't want to move to Berlin, so some of them moved to Berlin, and still they're here. They're happy. And in these years, we asked ourselves, what actually is it what we do there? And more we became aware that this is a community, but the question was, what means that? Does everyone wants to have this community? Does everyone wants to be part of it? How can we activate a community? So we started, especially I, to look really into it and try it out, talk to our residents, we call them like that. We have 45, meanwhile it's 50 even, internationally known performers, artists, songwriters, producers. And I tried to push into action and learn about the effects. And at some point, we even brought a startup to our community. They're still there in game sound implementation. So it's a mix of something technical and music related. And meanwhile, we have a second startup. That's Billy, who is in VR and music and picture. And at that stage, that was around 1.5 years ago, I met the founder of Factory Berlin, who's a really visionary guy. And he got introduced by another friend of mine, to who I talked to, 2-3 years about communities. And he was the manager of Siemens company. Okay. And he said to Udo, the founder of Factory, you guys have to talk. So he came to Riverside Studios and he was like, wow, this is really cool what you do. Yeah. And I actually did not really know about Factory. I heard of it. I thought it's some co-working space here in the city. And pretty soon, as it is often, we really were like matched well by my neighbor, and there was something, and then you think of doing something together, which is actually already part of the community. And he said, why don't we do a music studio at Factory? And I said, look, I'm not a big fan of just doing a studio there, because what's the point? That sounds like a marketing move. I'm more into, if we want to do something, let's do it proper, and that means for me, artists have to be part of your community, and maybe vice versa. So that was the very first step, how we did something out of a gut feeling. We have to do something without really deep thinking. Is there a business case behind, or what will be the outcome? And this is something I'm always talking about, how artists work, and I'm an artist actually. Artists sometimes do things out of a gut feeling, and then later some of them develop a business out of it, or it becomes a business, or maybe not, you know. Yeah. So I came to Factory then, because he invited me. He said, come here to Factory for 3 months and deep dive into our community, and then let's think. And that was actually the kickoff of the whole program, because I learned about the Factory. I learned there's such a cool community about also creative people building companies, young people having great ideas, visions, working hard. And it is far away from a co-working space, because this is a different model. And we realized it's similar what we build in creative, Factory built in tech. And we started to develop a new team, to develop a space here where we're sitting now. It's part of the space, Creators Lab. And we have a joint venture meanwhile with Riverside Studios, so the artists are onboarded here to the community of Factory, because we want to mix artists and tech people. Okay. Because we went more and more into looking on the effects on that, on history. I could talk for ages about that now with all the knowledge I have. At the end, we can break it down to if we mix creatives, I mean, not just creatives, everyone is creatives, right? Artists who just want to be creative and people who build a product, if we mix them, it's the key to technology actually. And that's how we set up a lot of team programming, the whole creative strategy called Creative Code and so further. And 1.5 years later, we even believe that what we started is part of maybe even a society model in the future, where we will not separate work and our life from each other's, which is one big thing. And that's where a factory comes in. The game factory is a place where we think of new work. How do we work in the future?
Yeah, I mean, now that you have actually went through it and really launched the whole program, what were actually the main challenges and what are actually the top learnings that you have?
First challenges were making other people understand what we do. Because I would say, maybe for us artists, it's a bit easier because, as I said, we try things out. For people who come from the business side, they will ask first what's the case behind, and we have stakeholders here, and not just Udo, the founder, who kicked it off. There's other people we have to convince them why we do that, because it's a business tool and not just fun. So that was the first challenge, to find arguments they would understand why they would do it. So you can look into history, challenge where comes innovation from, and we come back to Leonardo da Vinci, where artists were the drivers of technology, and we came to an age of industrialization where tech professionals were built, and we moved now into an era where more and more it comes back to the creative momentum giving the trigger of innovation, because anything that comes for development will more and more taken over by machine learning, we believe. And we had to really leverage that and show that to people. And we were setting up this program, and even within the company itself, it was not easy, because this, as I said, as a business, we have also revenue targets and very clear KPIs, and then suddenly there's this program about artist in residence program and so further. So why do we do that? And the more and more we proceeded, and we learned by ourselves from the process, people really understood why we do that. And now this is, I think, the biggest success, that we all now, for ourselves as Factory Berlin, understand why we set up this program.
Yeah, I mean, now I will a little bit challenge the whole concept. So actually, if we bring doctors maybe with developers, it's a healthcare solution, bankers with developers, it's a fintech. By bringing artists with developers, can we just expect another art tech solution, something like an enhanced or like a new Spotify, new SoundCloud? Or do you really believe that it can be beyond that?
I could answer yes, because it's part of it. There is very obvious cases where art and technology is a business. This is exactly what you guys do with xibit. Xibit or xibit?
Yeah, xibit.
And there is many examples where virtual reality plays a bigger part, in a bigger role in development, in design processes, and so further. I believe it's more because disruption never comes from inside. And me as a music artist, I know from my own history, when I started to do music, I'm more free to do something. And the more I know about theory and technical processes and production skills, the more I set myself, I'm within boundaries, because I know what is doable, what not. And that limits us from doing the unexpected and the disruptive approach. And that's why we need to mix artists, people who stand up every day to find the unexpected thing, to think out of boundaries, with people who develop a certain product and are limited within their frames, but needing them at the end to have a product. So we bring them together, you challenge each other, and you find real innovation for it. And that's why I believe the case is the bigger one. It's not the obvious one.
Yeah. And actually the other question is why would companies like McKinsey, Siemens, Porsche, Deutsche Bank invest in that?
Because we believe first, it's three problems driving all industry. First problem is, how can we attract talent? It's the biggest challenge. And in 2018, a big survey of companies leaders was clearly identified as number one challenge. Talent is the key for success in the future. even way before revenues and any other growth targets. Second problem, how can we keep the performers within our companies? And the third problem is, where comes innovation from? Why? Because we are coming from an inside-out innovation age, means innovation till now comes through our research and development. We develop and develop better and better, and we're innovative through the process. But the markets have high dynamic, businesses change faster and faster. We don't have the time anymore to develop innovation. And the second point about it is machine learning takes over the engineering and the development processes, so innovation comes more from outside. So we're going into an outside innovation era. And these three problems we can solve through something we call community. Community is sharing knowledge, experience built through collaboration, trust, and identification. We identify, we become a community, and there's diversity inside. And there's the role of the artists in the future. And we believe in the future working surroundings will look like that. So to break it down to an easier understanding, if I'm maybe Siemens, and in 20 years I want to attract the talents coming out of the code university we have here in our factory, who are a generation not going through transformation, they are digital natives. They will not work in an ecosystem where you go to work and you work in a team and in a very clear silo for 20 years. They will work in a surrounding as we provide at factory, and that means we get inspired by people, we build synergies, we collaborate, we share things, and through that setup, we are creative and develop technology further. So the artists play a role in that diverse surrounding you will have around yourself. So that's what we believe in, and that's the answer why these companies can learn here at a very first stage that we are facing culture change. We're going into that direction, and second, we can help them by starting and curating from maybe a very small community within their own systems and let it grow so they attract this talent in the future.
Yeah, very interesting. Going to another dimension, like something that we see happening more and more is like technology is used in art venues, like concerts, for example, like from drones to all kind of mobile applications to engage like the audience. Where do you see this going, like in 3 years, in 5 years?
I can't really say, predict concrete what else will be invented, how we use or how we demand for entertainment, for instance. You know, we all just know it is more and more part of our daily lives, and I think the question is not really what is the next invention. The question is what role plays culture and entertainment within our lives in the future. And I think this is the level above we can think of, and I think, and that's what I learned from thinking a lot of disruptive business models. You know, disruption is always way bigger than it's just a detail. And of course, like technology and all this what you asked, it's around us and will be more and more. That's definitely no question. I don't see like a step back.
Do you have any last feedback, word, advice for us, for our audience?
The most important is to be open for change. That's hard, even for me, for all of us. It's really hard. Most people are afraid of change because change means leaving the comfort zone. I always see change as a chance, actually, or something that can have potential, or there will be new things coming if you're open for it. I think the history shows if you try to stop it or to not be part of it, then it has actually more negative effects other than seeing positive chances in it and just being open.
True. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. It was very, very insightful. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.